Part 1. The air inside the Viridia Prime station was cool and still, but tension hung thick enough to choke on. Around the circular negotiation table, representatives from over 200 species sat in silence, their postures stiff, their eyes sharp. Some wore sleek biosuits that shimmered under the soft lighting. Others had no need for air at all, floating in containment fields or perched on custom-built chairs that accommodated limbs no human mind could easily count. At the far end of the table, Leo Grant adjusted his collar. He was not a soldier, not a general, not even a politician by trade. He was a linguist turned diplomat, chosen because he listened more than he spoke. Beside him, Maya Ruiz kept her hands folded on the table, her dark eyes scanning the room. She was a physicist, one of Earth's best, and she carried data in her tablet that could change everything, if anyone would just look at it. For 3 weeks, the Galactic Concord had debated the same issue, a strange ripple in space-time detected near the edge of the Perseus arm. It wasn't a black hole. It wasn't a supernova remnant. It moved, it grew, and it responded to energy signatures in ways that defied known physics. Humanity had been the first to spot it, thanks to deep-range quantum sensors placed beyond the Oort cloud. They had shared the findings immediately, hoping for cooperation. Instead, they got suspicion. The Vrathi ambassador, a tall, scaled figure with eyes like polished obsidian, finally broke the silence. "Your so-called anomaly appears only where your ships have traveled," he said, his voice translated through a modulator into flat, emotionless English. "You test weapons, you tear holes in reality, and now you ask us to trust you?" Leo leaned forward slightly. "We're not testing anything. We detected this phenomenon 6 months ago. We've sent no ships near it. In fact, we've pulled back all outposts within 200 light-years." He kept his voice calm, even though his pulse hammered in his throat. "This isn't about us. It's about all of us." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Keth Collective, a hive-minded delegation represented by a single drone body, tilted its head. "Your species has a history of rapid expansion," it said through a chorus of overlapping voices. "You terraform without permission. You broadcast signals into sacred voids. Now you speak of cosmic threats as if you alone can see them." Maya finally spoke. "The data doesn't lie. Look at it." She tapped her tablet and a hologram bloomed above the table. Swirling patterns of distorted space, timestamps, energy spikes. "This thing, it's not natural. It learns, it adapts. If it reaches inhabited systems, it could destabilize stars, planets, entire civilizations." But the Vrathi ambassador only scoffed. "Convenient. A ghost in the dark, and only humans can see it. Only humans can save us. How noble." Leo felt the weight of the room shift. Trust, already thin, was snapping. He remembered the briefing back on Earth. "If they turn on us, don't argue. Don't beg. Just walk away." But walking away meant leaving the galaxy blind to a threat it refused to acknowledge. Outside the chamber, through the curved, transparasteel wall, the stars glittered cold and distant. Viridia Prime orbited a quiet yellow star, far from any major trade lane, a neutral ground by design. Yet neutrality meant nothing when fear took hold. And fear was all Leo saw in the eyes of the other delegates now. The Concord's moderator, an ancient lumine with skin like cracked porcelain, raised a frail hand. "The proposal from Terran Union is noted. We will recess for deliberation." But there would be no deliberation. Everyone knew it. The vote had already been decided in whispers and back-channel messages. Humanity was too new, too loud, too unpredictable. They built cities on dead moons and turned asteroids into gardens. They asked questions no one else dared to ask, and that made them dangerous. As the session adjourned, Leo and Maya gathered their things without speaking. In the corridor, a Keth drone drifted past, its lens eyes flickering as it scanned them. Further down, 2 Vrathi guards stood with crossed arms, their claws glinting under the lights. The message was clear. You are no longer welcome. Back in their quarters, Maya pulled up a live feed from Earth. News channels were already reporting the collapse of the summit. Some called it a betrayal. Others called it inevitable. Leo stared out the viewport at the station's docking ring, where their shuttle, the Dawn Chaser, waited silently. "They think we caused this," Maya said, her voice low. "They'd rather believe we're reckless than admit something out there scares even us." Leo nodded. And if we stay, they'll blame us for whatever happens next. A chime sounded. An official message from the Concord Security Directorate. All human personnel were to depart Viridia Prime within 6 hours. No exceptions. No extensions. Maya closed the feed. They're not just kicking us out. They're erasing us. Leo turned from the window. Then we go. But we don't go quietly. He opened a secure channel to Fleet Command on Luna. The words were simple, coded, and final. Talks failed. Initiate Exodus Protocol. Across the Sol system, hidden servers blinked to life. Emergency beacons activated in deep orbit. On Mars, engineers began wiping core databases. In the shipyards of Titan, dormant engines roared awake. As their shuttle lifted off an hour later, Leo watched Viridia Prime shrink behind them. The station looked peaceful, calm, orderly, blind. He thought of all the species inside, arguing over borders and trade rights while something far worse crept closer through the dark. Maya sat beside him, her tablet dark now. Do you think they'll ever understand? Leo didn't answer right away. The stars ahead were empty, unknown, but they were also free. Maybe not, he said finally, but we'll be ready when it matters. The Dawn Chaser jumped to warp, leaving the Concord and the galaxy that feared them far behind. Part 2. The message reached Earth in less than 3 seconds. Talks failed. Initiate Exodus Protocol. It was signed by Leo Grant, but no one needed the name to know what it meant. In the United Terran Council chamber beneath Geneva, silence lasted only a heartbeat before Admiral Carl Briggs stood up and said one word. Go. Across the solar system, humanity moved like a single organism waking from sleep. On Mars, the red dust swirled around evacuation towers as families boarded shuttles with only what they could carry. In the floating cities of Venus's upper atmosphere, engineers sealed off entire sectors and uploaded final backups to hardened drives. On Titan, ice mining colonies powered down reactors and loaded cryopods onto freighters painted in dull gray. No flags, no names, just numbers. No one wanted to leave, but everyone understood. Staying meant trusting a galaxy that had just called them liars and threats. Carl Briggs stood on the command deck of the USS Marlin, his oldest ship and his favorite. He was a broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair, and eyes that had seen too many drills become real. Around him, officers moved with quiet urgency. Screens flashed with fleet status reports. Over 300 vessels were already en route to Sol. Civilian transports, science cruisers, mining tugs retrofitted with engines. They all answered the same silent call. The plan had been tested in simulations for years, but no simulation could capture the weight of actually leaving home forever. Maya Ruiz arrived on the Marlin via shuttle, her arms full of data slates. She had spent the last 12 hours wiping research stations clean. Anything that could be used as a weapon, advanced AI cores, quantum entanglement communicators, even schematics for fusion reactors, was either destroyed or encrypted with keys only humans could unlock. They wanted us gone, she told Carl as she stepped onto the bridge. Fine, but they won't get our tools to fight what's coming. Carl nodded. Good. We take nothing they can twist against us. The real challenge wasn't the ships, it was the people. Over 12 billion humans lived beyond Earth. Not all could be saved. Priority went to children, scientists, engineers, and those with skills needed to rebuild. The rest had to be left behind with a choice: stay and hope the galaxy forgot them or find their own way out. It was a cruel math, but survival demanded it. On Luna, the last transport lifted off just as Vrathi's scouts entered the outer system. They didn't attack. They just watched. From orbit, they saw cities go dark. Orbital docks detach and drift, and the great solar mirrors fold inward like closing eyes. To the aliens, it looked like surrender, but to those leaving, it was something else entirely. A quiet act of defiance. We are not your enemy, the empty station seemed to say, but we will not wait for you to realize it. Danny Cho, a young pilot barely 23, guided his freighter, the Wayward, through the debris field near Jupiter. His cargo hold was packed with cryopreserved seeds, soil samples, and genetic archives, Earth's biological memory. He had grown up in the asteroid belt, never setting foot on solid ground until training. Now he was carrying the future in his hold, and the weight of it made his hands sweat even in zero gravity. Back on the Marlin, Carl reviewed the final departure window. All major colonies had reported evacuation complete. The last Earth-based shuttles were docking. In 6 hours, the fleet would jump beyond the Oort cloud, into a region of space so empty it had no name. There, they would vanish, not by hiding, but by becoming ghosts in a part of the galaxy no one cared to map. Leo Grant arrived last. His shuttle docked with a soft thud, and he walked onto the bridge without fanfare. He looked tired, older than his 38 years. He handed Carl a small drive. Everything we said at Viridia Prime, every word, every recording. If we don't make it, someone should know we tried. Carl took it and tucked it into his uniform. We'll make it. The fleet formed up in silence. No horns, no signals, no farewells broadcast into the void. Just rows of ships, dark and disciplined, engines humming at low power. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble wrapped in clouds, beautiful and fragile. No one spoke as they watched it shrink. Then, one by one, the ships activated their warp drives. Space bent. Light stretched. And humanity disappeared. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy noticed. First, trade routes went quiet. Human freighters no longer delivered rare isotopes from the Kuiper Belt. Then, scientific outposts stopped sending data. Automated beacons blinked out. The Vrathi sent scouts to Mars. They found empty domes, overgrown hydroponic gardens, and a single message carved into the side of Olympus Mons in 20 languages. We warned you. The Keth Collective analyzed the message for days. They found no hidden codes, no traps, just words. And that scared them more than any weapon. Meanwhile, deep in the void beyond known space, the human fleet drifted. Supplies were tight, morale was lower. Some ships reported strange readings, ripples in subspace, faint echoes that sounded almost like voices. Maya studied them for hours, her brow furrowed. It's not random, she told Carl one night. It's reacting to us. To our presence. Carl stared at the star map. Then we keep moving. Until we find a place they'll never look. On the bridge of the Wayward, Danny Cho watched his sensors ping with something new, a faint energy signature near the Helix Nebula. It pulsed in rhythm with human brainwave patterns. He didn't report it right away. He just logged it, marked it, and wondered if they were running towards something. Or being called. The fleet sailed on, silent and unseen. Behind them, the galaxy grew uneasy. Ahead, the dark waited. And for the first time in centuries, humanity had no audience, only purpose. 3 months passed in the endless dark. The human fleet drifted through a part of space so empty it had no name on any old star chart. No trade lanes crossed here. No alien signals echoed through the void. It was perfect for hiding, but not for living. Food stores ran low. Recycled air tasted stale. And the silence between ships grew heavier with each passing day. People began to dream of Earth, not as it was, but as they wished it had been. Green, peaceful, whole. On the USS Marlin, Carl Briggs reviewed supply reports with a frown. Rations would last another 6 weeks if they cut portions again. Water reclamation systems were failing on 3 transports. And morale? Morale was harder to measure. Some crew members spoke in whispers about turning back. Others said they should send a message, just one, to let the galaxy know they were still alive. But Leo Grant, now serving as civilian liaison, always shook his head. If we reach out, they'll track us. And if they find us, they'll blame us for whatever's happening out there. Because something was happening. Reports trickled in from the outer patrols. Strange distortions in spacetime. Gravity wells that appeared and vanished without cause. Ships that strayed too far from the main fleet sometimes lost contact for hours, returning with scrambled logs and crews too shaken to speak clearly. Maya Ruiz spent her days analyzing every scrap of data. She barely slept. Her eyes were ringed with dark circles, but her mind burned with urgency. She knew what this was. It was the same anomaly they had tried to warn the Concord about. The one that learned, that grew, that fed on energy and chaos. Then came Danny Cho's discovery. The young pilot had been running a solo recon sweep near the edge of the Helix Nebula when his sensors picked up a signal unlike anything in the database. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a natural emission. It pulsed in slow, steady waves like a heartbeat. And when Danny ran a neural resonance scan, the pattern matched human brain activity during deep meditation. He didn't understand it, but he knew it mattered. He sent the data to Maya with a simple note. This feels like it's waiting for us. Maya studied the readings for 2 days straight. She compared them to the old Viridia Prime data. The match was undeniable. The anomaly wasn't just out there, it was aware, and it was responding to human presence in ways no machine or alien mind could replicate. She called an emergency meeting on the Marlin's observation deck. Only Carl, Leo, and a few senior officers attended. No recordings, no logs, just voices in the dim light with the stars watching through the glass. "It's not attacking us," Maya said, her voice quiet but firm. "It's testing us, probing, like it's trying to understand what we are." Carl crossed his arms. "And if it decides we're a threat? Then we're already dead," Leo said. "But if it's curious, maybe we can talk to it." The room fell silent. Talk to a cosmic anomaly. The idea sounded mad. But humanity had always reached out, even when it cost them everything. Danny was summoned. He stood nervously before the group, his flight suit still dusty from the nebula run. "I didn't get close," he admitted. "But the signal got stronger the farther I went. Like it wanted me to follow." Maya nodded. "That's because it recognizes us. Not as invaders. Not as weapons. As something familiar." No one asked what she meant. They all felt it. The strange pull in their bones, the dreams that felt too real, the sense that they hadn't just fled the galaxy. They'd been called. A plan formed slowly. Not an attack. Not a retreat. An approach. A single ship, lightly armed, would return to the signal source. No weapons charged. No shields raised. Just open comms and a human mind at the controls. Danny volunteered before anyone else could speak. Carl hesitated. "You're just a kid." "I'm the one who found it," Danny said. "And it found me back." Leo looked at Maya. She gave a small nod. They both knew this was the moment everything changed, not just for the fleet but for what humanity might become. The ship chosen was the Horizon's Whisper, a small science vessel with minimal signature. Its systems were stripped of anything that could be seen as hostile. Maya uploaded a special program into its core, a loop of human music, speech, heartbeats, and neural patterns. "If it listens," she said, "let it hear who we really are." The day of departure, the fleet gathered in a loose formation. No fanfare, no speeches. Just a quiet farewell as the Horizon's Whisper slipped away from the Marlin's docking arm and turned toward the nebula. Inside, Danny sat alone, hands steady on the controls. His heart pounded, but his breath was calm. He played Maya's loop over the external speakers, not as a message, but as an offering. As he neared the signal source, space itself seemed to soften. Stars blurred. Time stretched. Then, without warning, the ship stopped moving. Not because the engines failed, but because space folded around it like a hand closing gently. On the Marlin, sensors went wild. Then, just as suddenly, they went quiet. For 3 hours, there was nothing. No signal, no life signs. Carl prepared to send a rescue team, but Maya held up a hand. "Wait," she whispered. "It's not over." Then a single ping returned. Weak but clear, and attached to it was a new signal. Fast, ancient, and humming with something that felt like recognition. Danny's voice came through, shaky but alive. "It's not an enemy. It's a guardian. And it's been waiting for someone to understand." Back on the bridge, Leo closed his eyes. For the first time since Viridia Prime, he felt hope. The fleet held its position. The void held its breath. And far ahead, in the heart of the nebula, something old and vast began to wake, not to destroy, but to guide. Humanity had left the galaxy behind. But out here in the deep dark, they were no longer alone. Part 4. The galaxy did not notice humanity's absence right away. At first, it felt like a relief. No more human ships clogging the trade lanes. No more debates about ethics, borders, or who owned what asteroid. The Vrathi hegemony celebrated quietly. The Keth Collective reallocated resources once spent monitoring Terran activity. For a few weeks, the stars seemed quieter, cleaner, like a room after a noisy guest finally left. But silence has a weight. And soon that weight began to press down on everyone. Without human freighters, rare minerals from the outer system stopped flowing. Fusion catalysts grew scarce. Medical nanites became luxury items. On dozens of worlds, hospitals rationed treatments. Factories slowed, then stopped. The humans had not just been traders, they had been the glue holding fragile supply chains together. Worse still, old tensions flared. The Vrathi and the Keth had long distrusted each other, but humanity had often stepped in as neutral mediators. Now, with no one to calm the storm, a border skirmish near the Lyra Rift exploded into full war. Fleets clashed over dead moons and empty stations, many of them former human outposts now stripped bare and useless. The fighting spread. Planets that had known peace for centuries saw their skies filled with fire again. And then the anomalies returned. Not just ripples this time, not just distortions. Entire star systems began to flicker. Navigation beacons failed. Warp drives misfired, stranding ships in dead space. A Keth exploration vessel vanished near the ruins of Mars, its last transmission a garbled scream about shapes in the static. The Vrathi sent a battle group to investigate. Only one ship came back, and its crew was catatonic, eyes wide, muttering about the end of light. Panic spread faster than any fleet could contain it. Scientists scrambled for answers, but without human quantum sensors or data archives, they were blind. The Concord tried to reconvene, but half its members were too busy fighting each other to attend. Those who did gather sat in stunned silence as reports piled up, stars dimming for no reason, planets shifting orbits, time itself seeming to stutter in certain regions. It was then that someone remembered the warnings. A young Vrathi archivist named Trell, working deep in the Viridia Prime records, pulled up the final session logs from the collapsed summit. He watched Leo Grant's face as the human pleaded with the room. He listened to Maya Ruiz explain the anomaly with calm, clear logic. And he read the words carved into Mars. "We warned you." Trell showed the footage to his superiors. At first, they dismissed it as propaganda, but as more systems fell silent, doubt crept in. What if the humans hadn't been lying? What if they hadn't been reckless? What if they had seen the storm coming and tried to build an ark? The idea spread like a virus, not through official channels, but through whispers in shipyards, in refugee camps, in the quiet corners of war rooms. "Where did they go?" people asked. "Why didn't they fight?" And the most haunting question of all, what do they know that we don't? Desperate, the remnants of the Conquered did something they never thought they would do. They sent messages into the void. Not demands, not accusations, please. Encrypted subspace bursts filled with coordinates, apologies, questions. Return, explain, help us. They broadcast them in every human language they could find, even the old ones. Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic scraped from abandoned databases. But the void gave no answer. Still, something changed. Far from the chaos of the core systems near the edge of known space, strange pulses began to appear. Not random noise, structured, rhythmic, almost musical. They came from the direction of the Helix Nebula, the last place any human ship had been seen. The pulses didn't carry words, but they carried stability. Warp lanes near the signal stabilized, gravity wells smoothed out. For the first time in months, a Keth scout ship traveled safely through a once-dead zone. Scientists were baffled. The pulses seemed to counteract the anomaly, not by fighting it, but by harmonizing with it. Like a song calming a storm. A Vrathi historian, old and weary from years of war, reviewed archived footage of Leo Grant's final speech one night. He watched the humans' eyes, tired, sad, but certain. "They didn't abandon us," the historian murmured to his empty chamber. "They warned us, and we laughed." Now the laughter had turned to fear, and fear had turned to something worse, regret. In the ruins of a human research station near Proxima, a Keth drone found a single intact terminal. On its screen, frozen in time, was a message never sent. "If you're reading this, it's not too late. Look to the rim. Follow the silence." No one knew what it meant, but for the first time, the galaxy stopped looking inward and started looking out. They did not know that humanity was not gone. They did not know that far beyond the edge of their maps, humans were building something new. All they knew was that the stars felt colder without them, and that the dark, once empty, now seemed to watch back. The war slowed, not because peace was made, but because survival demanded it. Fleets turned away from each other and toward the rim, toward the pulses, toward the hope that somewhere out there, the ones they had cast out might still care enough to save them. But humanity gave no sign. No ships returned. No voices answered. Only the pulses remained, steady, quiet, and growing stronger. And in that silence, the galaxy began to understand. They had not lost their neighbors. They had lost their shield, and now they were truly alone with the storm. Part 4. Far beyond the edge of every known star map, where space folded in on itself like old paper, the human fleet gathered around something no one had ever seen before. It was not a planet, not a station. It was a structure, vast, ancient, and humming with a quiet power that made the bones vibrate. Danny Cho had found it first, drawn by the pulse that matched human thought. Now hundreds of ships floated in its shadow, silent and small against its impossible scale. Maya Ruiz stood on the observation deck of the Marlin, her hands pressed against the cool glass. She had studied the scans for weeks. The structure was artificial, built millions of years ago by a species long gone. Its walls were made of a material that bent light and time. Inside, corridors twisted in ways that defied geometry. And at its heart lay a machine, not of gears or circuits, but of pure resonance. It spoke in frequencies, not words, and it responded to consciousness. They faced the same thing we did, Maya said softly, though no one was beside her. They saw the anomaly coming, and instead of running, they built this to hold it back. Carl Briggs joined her, his uniform worn but clean. He had aged in the months since Exodus. His hair was grayer, his steps slower, but his eyes were sharp. Can we use it? We already are, Maya replied. The pulses we've been sending? They're not ours. We just woke it up. It's using us as a key. Leo Grant appeared behind them, holding a data slate. His face was calm, but his voice carried weight. The galaxy's receiving the signals. Their warp lanes are stabilizing. Their stars are quieting. They don't know it's us, but they're safe because of what we found. Carl looked out at the fleet. Families lived in the ships now. Children had been born in the void. Gardens grew under artificial suns. Humanity had not just survived, they had begun again. But they were not hiding anymore. They were watching, waiting, protecting. Danny Cho piloted a small shuttle toward the structure's main entrance. He wore no armor, carried no weapons, just a neural link band around his temple, synced to the machine inside. He was the bridge now, the human mind the ancient builders had hoped would one day return. As his shuttle passed through the shimmering threshold, the walls lit up with soft blue light. Symbols appeared, none in any human language, yet Danny understood them. They spoke of balance, of sacrifice, of guardianship. Inside he found the core, a sphere of liquid light floating in perfect stillness. When he reached out, it did not burn. It welcomed him. And in that moment, Danny knew this was never about fighting the anomaly. It was about harmonizing with it. The anomaly wasn't evil. It was entropy made aware, a force of unraveling that could only be calmed by minds that understood both creation and loss. Back on the Marlin, Maya received a new data stream. It was Danny's thoughts translated through the machine. It's not coming for the galaxy, he sent. It's testing it. Looking for those who can listen. Leo turned to Carl. We can't go back? Not yet, but we can shield them. Carl nodded. Then that's what we do. Over the next weeks, teams of engineers and scientists worked with the ancient machine. They learned to shape its pulses, to aim its resonance like a shield across light years. They built relay stations from salvaged hulls and asteroid metal, placing them along the galaxy's outer rim. Each one hummed with the same quiet song, a lullaby for the storm. No one in the core systems knew who sent the protection. Some called it a miracle. Others said it was the work of forgotten gods. But astronomers tracked the source. They saw the pattern, and they began to whisper a single word: Terrans. Still, humanity did not answer their calls. They stayed hidden, not out of anger, but wisdom. The galaxy had to learn on its own, to stop fighting, to listen, to care for more than just itself. Only then would they be ready to face what lay beyond the veil. On Earth, now overgrown and silent, a single satellite still orbited. Its solar panels were cracked, its systems nearly dead, but once a day it received a faint signal from deep space, a pulse of calm, steady energy. It recorded the signal, stored it, and beamed it back into the void as a thank you no one would ever hear. In the Vrathi capital, the War Council disbanded. The Keth Collective halted its fleet. For the first time in generations, the galaxy held its breath, not in fear but in wonder. Stars that had flickered for months now burned steady. Children played under skies no longer lit by explosions, and in quiet rooms old diplomats replayed Leo Grant's final speech, hearing not arrogance but sorrow. Far away, on the edge of everything, Leo stood alone on the Marlin's deck. The structure glowed behind him like a second sun. He thought of home, not the cities or the oceans, but the idea of it, the hope, the stubborn belief that even in the darkest void someone would care enough to light a candle. Carl joined him. Do you think they'll ever find us? Maybe, Leo said. But it doesn't matter. We're not here for them to find. We're here so they never have to. Maya appeared beside them, holding a new reading. The anomaly had slowed. Not stopped, but calmed. Like a wild river now flowing through a channel built just for it. Danny's voice came over the comm, soft and distant. It knows we're here, and it's grateful. The three of them watched the stars. No flags flew. No anthems played. But in that moment, humanity was more than a species. They were a promise. A quiet hand holding back the dark. And somewhere in the endless night, the galaxy slept a little safer. Because the ones they had cast out had become its keepers.